Welcome in, college football fans. Welcome to the Week 6 reaction show. You're tuned in to the First and Long college football show. I'm your co-host, Marcus. There's your other co-host, Mason. Mason, it's been a crazy Week 6. We still got games going on. We're watching the end of Notre Dame at Louisville right now. Louisville's up 27-13. How you doing tonight as Louisville just gets an interception and is going back the other way into Notre Dame territory? How you doing,
Holy
bud?
cow, man! I'm hurting. I'm reeling a little bit. Forgive me if I'm a little choked up. It's been a rough week for the betting public. I feel like, it's. I think that in a way, nothing that has happened has been too crazy, but at the same time, at least for me, for my picks, it was a tough week to predict. Basically the way that things fell. But ultimately, I mean, you see OU beat Texas. That wasn't too much of a surprise. You see Alabama beat Texas A&M. A lot of people, including myself, were pretty high on Texas A&M. They weren't able to get it done. So really, outside of what looks like a Louisville win, what's shaping up to be a Louisville win, not many surprises. What do you think about the week so far as we still are wrapping up these night games?
Well, that was an unbelievable game that we saw in the Red River Rivalry. That was incredible football. Dylan Gabriel played his ass off out there. Congratulations to all the Oklahoma fans because that is just a huge win, and I think it solidifies Oklahoma's spot in the Big 12 championship this year. And because I mean, basically, they're playing with a game to lose at this point. So, and on the other hand of that, what does this mean for Texas? We'll kind of go over that as we dive into that game. LSU continues to not have a defense worth a doggone flip, man. I guess until the last couple plays of the game, whenever they return a pick six to hit the cover and ruin a bunch of bets for a bunch of people in that LSU and Missouri game. Washington State was crazy. 6 turnovers in that game. Bama at Texas A&M. I don't think that went the way that many people were thinking at all. Although I do know the majority of people were betting on Alabama. But Syracuse, North Carolina just shuts them out. Shuts them down. Georgia shuts down Kentucky. So we had some games that went, I think, the way some people thought they'd go. I don't think a lot of people were predicting Oklahoma to beat Texas, but it was just in weird fashions. I mean, we saw Georgia just absolutely unleash a can of whoop-a on offense, especially in the first half. I mean, or really just throughout the whole game, over half 100 on those Kentucky Wildcats. And we had a lot of Wildcat fans commenting on the video last week. And Wildcat fans, hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in and coming and hanging out with us. But that means a lot to us. And we had a lot of success with the Week 6 videos and everything. So I just want to say thank you. And if you're watching right now, I hope that if you're not subscribed, either you're watching on the replay or live, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can enjoy this college football season with us and college football seasons to come. Let's dive a little deeper into that Oklahoma and Texas game. So this was the big noon game of the week, and OU wins on a last-second drive. Dylan Gabriel waits to throw his one and only touchdown of the game right there at the very end in a very clutch situation. Pocket crashing down on him, and he unleashes one to the back corner of the end zone. Really good play design there by Jeff Lebby. And I thought this was just such an impressive win for Oklahoma. I was so happy for them after getting beat 49-0 last year. Couldn't mean any more to any team than what it did tonight. What did you think about the game tonight? Or excuse me, this afternoon?
Well, I thought it was the best game of of the week. In my opinion, it was very close throughout the game. You did not know. I don't know about you. I did not have a good feel for who was going to win this game for the entirety of it. You know, I knew that Texas has the firepower to get back in it. You know, OU got up early. You know, really, OU was able to capitalize on a lot of Texas's mistakes. You know, Dylan Gabriel had one outstanding game, but Quinn Ewers wasn't terrible either. I mean, 31 of 37, 346 yards and one touchdown. That's pretty dang good. The only thing that really hurt him were the two interceptions. So and a fumble, you know. So he turns the ball over 3 times, and to me, that was the difference in this ball game for Texas. You know, had he not done that and protected the ball a little bit better, maybe they're able to put up a few more points and take some more time off the clock, and OU doesn't score. Not to take anything away from OU. You know, Dylan Gabriel, 285 yards in the air, another 113 on the ground, 2 total touchdowns on the day. You know, what more can you say from a guy who clearly cemented himself into the Heisman contention and into the Heisman race after this week, you know, and what an outstanding game that he had, and in his first Red River rivalry, you know, he didn't get to play in this game last year. So he steps in and just takes over and looked like the better quarterback, you know. Certainly had a great day passing the ball, but Gabriel did it you know, passing and running, and really was just the MVP of the game and kind of stole the show, in my opinion. What do you think of it?
Well, as I said, Oklahoma did impress me, but there was definitely some questionable things that happened on like special teams and things like that, and I thought that Texas kind of withered under the pressure at times that Oklahoma was putting them in. I thought the lines of scrimmage were a lot more evenly matched than what I thought they'd be going into this matchup. Oklahoma at times dominated. I mean, the momentum switched back and forth in this game. It felt like so many times. But just kudos to both of these teams. I mean, they fought their asses off, and I think we're going to see these two teams end up facing off again in the Big 12 championship. I think this is very clearly the best 2 teams in the Big 12. Don't you think? I don't think there's any question about it at this point. I used to think Kansas State was like a third best. We'll talk about them maybe like at the end of the show or something. They don't deserve to be talked about at the beginning of the show.
Let me down.
God almighty knows, man, that was embarrassing what they done out there on Friday. So we'll get into that later because that's not that important. People don't want to hear about the Wildcats right now. But I this was just an all around very impressive game. I don't think I think there was some validity to what we talked about last week in the fact that Texas has kind of gotten off easy on a lot of situations this year, and they caught a good team at the wrong time. I felt like today, and weren't able to bow up on defense at the end of the game and win the game for this team, and that's kind of been honestly the calling card for this Texas team for the last few years. As Louisville has went up 30-13 on Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got the ball now at the 25.
And took a sack.
And took him a sack. He sure did. Took him a seat. Louisville has come to play. We'll still be on when this game is over, and we'll kind of talk about this one as it goes on, and then when it's over, we'll kind of dive into it. But congratulations again, the Boomer Sooners out there. That was fantastic, and I really was thoroughly impressed. Hey, Siegs, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I will say too, with Oklahoma, you know, I had some questions about their receiving core not having the playmakers that we're used to Oklahoma having and what we're used to seeing. Farouk really stepped up, had five catches for 130 yards, this afternoon, and played his tail off. Looked really good doing it. Was creating separation, yards after catch. He looked like a complete package.
Farouk is really good, man. And, that was a guy that had every opportunity to go to USC with Caleb Williams. That
Yeah.
Caleb Williams and him were like high school buddies or 7-on-7 teammates or whatever, and he had every opportunity to go to USC and earn all the accolades of playing on that offense, and he chose to stay at Oklahoma. And I think that he got paid in terms of legacy for that today, because people will forever remember him as a Longhorn killer after today. And that was such an exciting game. I was just absolutely thrilled about that. I thought I had taken Oklahoma in the points in the picks last week until I looked back and I was like, oh man, I didn't pull the trigger on it. I had tried to play the over under, so
Yeah. I know
stupid of
that
me.
was your
Oh,
play.
Sam Hartman
I
just
think that was
fumbled the
actually
ball. Louisville
both of our
got it.
plays. Wow.
Man,
It's
Louisville is
time to go
cooking up
night-night.
yeah, it's about time to call it over here. 4 turnovers today for Notre Dame, Mason.
Woo.
I mean,
We can
I
go
think
ahead
the
and break
gas
this
is
one
just
down
out
if
of
you
the
want,
tank,
Mark.
bro. What's that?
Yep. I was saying we might as well go ahead and break this one down unless you got more on Oklahoma, Texas.
No, I don't. I'm good on that. Congratulations, Oklahoma again. This everything in the world is right there in front of Oklahoma at this point, and if they can stay healthy, I'll say this and I'll end it on this. Oklahoma ran the ball for 200 yards today. And if you would have told me that if they could run it for 200 last week, I would have put all my money on them, because
Yeah.
this Oklahoma team, that's the piece that they've been missing. And they didn't really do it with a running back, but
Right.
they got it done with Dylan Gabriel and by association. I think Major got hurt, and I don't think he was able to return or whatever. But they had 40 yards here, 60 yards here, 30 yards here, and they just got it done. And Dylan Gabriel, I think, had 112 yards rushing, something like that. So that was an amazing victory there. Yeah, we can kind of break this other one, this Louisville Notre Dame game down if you'd like. What have you seen from Notre Dame today? I've seen a bunch of turnovers and looks like a team that's emotionally out of gas to me, Mason.
Yeah. I didn't catch much of this game. I was back and forth between, the Georgia game and the Braves were playing,
Yeah,
and the Braves let me down tonight. That was pretty bad
that was pretty rough.
offensively, but that we don't need
Pretty
to spend
rough.
any time on that. So, but yeah, Sam Hartman, he's 16 to 28 so far, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. I think this is a team that, and also I'll throw in 10 carries, but only 20 yards. He's limited to 2 yards per carry, and his longest of the day, 6 yards. That is pretty bad. I never would have expected Louisville like that. I mean, I never would have thought. I thought that Louisville was a phony team, and I mentioned that going into the preview, and you were a little bit more bullish on them, so I'll give you credit for that. But I thought after seeing Louisville struggle against NC State last week, that they had benefited from an easy schedule, and we're 5-0 and kind of, just happened across being 5-0, like any team does that these days. But yeah, so credit to them. They've come out. Jack Plummer wasn't asked to do much, only had 23 attempts passing the ball, 140 yards, averaging, 6 yards per catch, and had 1 touchdown on the day. And the big winner here was Jawar Jordan. He was electric. Once again, it looks like he's been pretty good for Louisville so far all year. But 21 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that was kind of the difference. Nobody's been able to do that in Notre Dame.
This pretty much knocks Notre Dame out of everything. I mean, at this point, there's absolutely not going to be anything for them to play for. I mean, they're not in a conference, so there's no conference title game. There's absolutely nothing for them to play for at this point, and it's the first weekend, of October, and that's that's pretty tough to a pretty bitter pill to swallow, considering the tough games against good opponents that they've played this year. But we my lean didn't really have anything to do with Louisville. It was just more about the situation and Notre Dame running into a team, uh, the wrong team at the right time, and I think that's what this was right here. Notre Dame's coming off some very dramatic games, some emotional games over the last few weeks, and running out of gas. And furthermore, whenever the defense, and speaking of running out of gas, whenever the defense is on the field as much as they've been, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to run out of gas. This offense, um, has left this defense out to dry today,
Mm-hmm.
and it has made it very difficult for Notre Dame to rebound. So,
Well, and
furthermore,
we talked about this Notre Dame offense and how, they really haven't been impressive. I
they're
know that
not. That's what I
they've
was
come
about to get
across.
into. They're just not freaking
Yeah,
impressive, dude.
I mean, they've come across some pretty tough defenses. I guess you could say Ohio State is tough, but they kind of struggled to put Maryland away today, which Maryland's pretty
How
good
does
offense.
Sam
You
Hartman
know,
look better as a quarterback at Wake Forest?
hmm right?
How is that
Exactly,
possible? Tell
exactly.
me that. I do not understand. That
It-
doesn't make any damn sense to me. I don't want to hear about some academic standards. This ain't a
yeah,
Dr. Pepper commercial, okay?
yeah,
With
yeah.
this is big time Division I football here. I don't want to hear about some academic standards. I mean, listen to this receiving. I mean, how many receivers have caught a pass tonight? To Faison, 2 receptions. Evans, 2 receptions. Tyree, 3 receptions. Stays, 2 receptions. All of them are for, 8 yards apiece. Or,
Yeah.
Evans had, one that was, I guess, a longer one, and Faison had, but nobody even has 50 yards.
Yeah.
There's no playmakers here, and that's going to continue to be an issue for Notre Dame, and you know they got to play USC. I know coming up, and USC is gonna put this defense in situations it hadn't been in all year. I'm scared to see what that's going to turn out to look like whenever that happens. But I don't have faith that this offense can even fire back, even on a USC defense. I don't know. USC's defense has
Mhm.
been what the doctor ordered for crappy offenses for years now. But nonetheless, this is just a really really bad showing for Notre Dame as they take the field right now with 3 minutes and 12 seconds left, down 33-13 um, at Louisville. Well, maybe we'll
What a
come back to
fall
that.
from grace for Notre Dame where, the week of the Ohio State game, we're looking at Notre Dame and saying, hey, at least I was looking at Notre Dame and saying, hey, are they gonna supplant, my pick in Ohio State making the playoffs? Are they gonna kind of overtake them, because they look like the team that would do it? And
Yeah,
almost did, they almost did, but then they almost lost to Duke, and now getting they're getting handled by
you got to be
Louisville.
quicker than that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that they're struggling with this schedule. I think that it's shaped up to be really tough. Where they thought, you know, even as recent as last year or 2 years ago. I mean, if you look at when they made this schedule, right? You've got Ohio State, and then you get to kind of coast a little bit. You've got Duke, and then Louisville, and I'm sure they have a bye, coming up here soon. And so, you think you got a little bit of time, and all of a sudden you're facing three undefeated teams in a row,
Yeah.
and it's no cakewalk, and I'm sure that the schedule makers are kind of kicking themselves now, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame's not really good enough to make it to the playoffs, and I think that's pretty evident in how they've played the past couple of weeks at least. And um, so it really wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I think they're going to get beat pretty handedly by USC, and then I think that even a team like Clemson could easily take him. And I know Clemson had their struggles today,
This is
but
exactly the type of team that Clemson wants to tussle with, I feel like.
exactly. Oh yeah, it's not a good matchup for Notre Dame. It's really not.
Yeah.
Clemson still plays really good defense. So and they'll probably find a way to win this one, but we'll see. But for tonight, Notre Dame's probably the biggest loser of the night at this point.
Yeah, I definitely say so. And hey, there's a lot of people on this Louisville play, so I hope everybody got to make their money and all that good stuff. That's awesome. That was I felt like a brave play. So I kudos to everybody for that one. Let's go into this this LSU game. So LSU for another week in a row is in an offensive onslaught, and I want to give Sieg some credit in the comments there. Let's see. Oh, and he says that Miami just missed the extra point to tie the game.
There was a flag on the play. I've got that game on. There was a flag on the play, and they kicked it again, and it's tied now. And actually, Miami just picked it off and ran it back to the 12-yard line. So Miami, they're about to score, and there's 8 minutes left in the game, so plenty of time for Tech to have an answer. But this is a ball game. This is a ball game for sure.
Sieg said, "Never mind." Well, I want to give Sieg's credit on the LSU at Missouri game because he called this. I believe he called it by 10, and LSU won by 10. Maybe you should be hitting the old betting window up there, Siegs, and
yeah,
because you'd have made some money on that, brother. That was that actually was a nice call there, but this game's an actual just shootout, really. If you look at the yards and everything that were gained, 533 for LSU, 527 for Missouri. Missouri actually outpassed LSU, who I would consider to be the best passing team in the SEC. Missouri had 395 yards passing, but at the end of the game, it comes down to Missouri driving the ball down, and Cook, who had not thrown interceptions in a long time, throws 2 in this game here. What did you think about this game, and what does this mean for Missouri at this point? Because now the University of Georgia is the only undefeated SEC team left.
Yeah, and I mean, I still look at Missouri and say that's a pretty tough team. I love what Brady Cook has done, this season. And like you said, he still ended up with almost 400 passing yards. Had some yards on the ground too. So give him over 400 total yards. This is a really impressive Missouri offense, and we've talked about them all year long. They know what they are, and they play to their strengths.
I never would have thought. I never would have thought Missouri's defense would have gave up almost 300 yards rushing to LSU.
Yeah,
that just blows my mind.
I also think that LSU is a really good offense. I think that, and they mentioned it in the broadcast today, but this might be the second best offense that we've seen from LSU outside of that 2019 offense, and I think that they're pretty accurate with that. Now we could also just be seeing LSU expose some really bad defenses. That could very well be the case. We won't know until they face a Texas A&M or an Alabama. So, but if they continue to play like they're playing on offense, those are still winnable games. LSU is still, even with the loss that they've had, I mean, they're still, I don't want to say in the driver's seat, but they still have a chance to win. They've only got one SEC loss, and it wasn't against Alabama or Texas A&M. So technically, if they go on to handle business and beat those teams, and win out in the SEC, and hope that Ole Miss takes a loss, from one of those teams, then they could still be in the SEC championship at the end of this. So, that's a lot of ifs, and but crazier things have happened, and I don't think that this is a SEC West this year that is not that's strong enough in some ways, and has a clear decided number one that LSU can't sneak up and grab them.
Yeah, dude. Well, I'm just here to tell everybody the SEC West is doo doo. I feel like the SEC West is just horrible this year. I really, really do. I mean, we're going to get into this Texas A&M and Bama game obviously at some point here, but I mean, I just I don't know, man. How did all these teams end up being down at the same time? I just don't even understand. Just a little game update. We've got Arizona at USC going on right now. Arizona just went up 10-0. And it looks like we're winding down the quarter. We got about 5 minutes left in the first quarter. 10-0. So we'll keep an eye on that. Arizona is a pretty feisty team. Has played some good teams close this year, and they hit USC for about a 40-yarders. You know, water wet, fire hot. USC defense ass. So that's pretty much just
It's pretty
rules of the world, Mason.
Yep.
That's just the way nature works. We don't really know. We don't know where it comes from, but we know it's true.
You don't question Mother Nature. I mean,
we don't question Mother Nature on this show. So anyway, with all that being said, I thought Missouri had a little better defense than that. I know LSU's got a damn good offense. I mean, we can come to that realization. It's so good that it makes me mad because I hate how much they're going to waste it with a crappy defense this year. And it's crappy in all realms. This defense is bad at everything.
Yeah, I will give credit though. In the second half, they limited to only 14 points, which was going. So I do think that they kind of stepped up and made some plays, got the interceptions, got the last interception to really seal the deal, pick six, you know. So I mean, I do give them a little bit of credit there that they were able to score, 14 or 22 in the fourth quarter. 6 of those being from the defense, but yeah. So I mean, they were kind of a back half team, whereas last week they really struggled to close the game out. Ole Miss. So I don't know. Not to give them too much credit, the defense is still pretty ass. So I don't want to sit here and talk about.
It's so bad in all aspects. I just can't even. I knew the secondary was going to be bad. We talked about that preseason. We talked about that last week. We knew that was going to be bad, but my God, man. I mean, this front seven is just horrible too, and it's sad because I know there's some playmakers there, so I don't fully understand it. Let's keep it in the SEC. Let's go over to the Alabama at Texas A&M. So Texas A&M figured out some way to let Jalen Milroe throw for 300 yards on them. What in the actual hell? You let Milroe do the one throw. He has one throw in his arsenal.
Yeah.
And it's deep. And I'll give the man the credit where it's due. Jalen Milroe, he knows how to throw a deep ball. He's got a pretty deep ball. He really does. And
when he's on, it's on. I mean,
you give him a hot read, and you get beat by Jermaine Burton like these guys were getting beat. This man was taking their ankles. I mean, and partly taking their soul. I mean, just that stop and go route he hit him on, man. That dude just all his clothes fell off. He juked him out so bad. Just insane. Texas A&M, man, is just a joke at this point. Talk about a team that's out of everything at this point. There's nothing for them to win or play for at this point. And it's October 7th.
It's really sad.
And it's really a shame because the defense, I felt like, other than the deep ball, did everything right. They did everything right. Couldn't guard Jermaine Burton. Couldn't get some safety help over the top. Held him to like 30-something yards rushing.
23, if you count the negative plays.
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Absolutely embarrassing loss for Texas A&M. What do you think this means for Jimbo Fisher heading into next year, Mason? Do you? I mean, I say heading into next year. I mean, they're packing it up at this point, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
there ain't nothing to play for.
it's tough for me to really say that they're going to get rid of Jimbo Fisher.
Do you think they need to?
I do think they need to. I don't know if the circumstances right now are great enough for them to pull the trigger, because you can look at this and say, man, we've got the receivers, and they do. They've got some really good receivers. They've got some pretty good running backs. I'm not like, I think that they're pretty mid, running back. I think Ruben Owens could come into his own he's a true freshman right now, but offensive line is okay. They could use a little bit of work, but what really the issue with this offense right now, at least, and the defense, let's go ahead and get them out of the way. Exceptional, they still held Alabama to under 30, which is still pretty good. But Max Johnson is the backup quarterback. They had Connor Wegman, right? Is he really, is Connor Wegman is who I'm talking about? Is he really, would he really be a difference maker in this ball game, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
I
it
don't
makes a
either.
damn bit of difference here.
Right. And that's kind of my question. It's like, I think that the leadership at Texas A&M would look at Jimbo Fisher and say, oh, well, he lost his starting quarterback, and that's why we weren't as good. I
Yeah.
think, personally, that wouldn't have made a difference. So that's why I say I don't know if I can speak to that. Honestly, I took more away from this game looking at Alabama and saying, ugh, like 23 yards rushing, and that's what you're building your team around. That's what you're building your offense around. And you got 23 yards on 26 carries.
Yeah.
That's awful. That is awful for what's probably gonna end up being the team that wins the West. At this point, that's despicable to me. Unless Milroe is able to just find a way to bottle this up and pull it out every game and throw for 300 yards.
I mean, and that's the thing, though, man. They just let them do exactly the only thing that he can do. The dude sucks at intermediate passing. He cannot throw the ball in the middle of the field. He can't throw the short passes. He doesn't have the touch or the accuracy to do so. He has a hot read, deep route. If it ain't there, take off. That's all he can do. Texas A&M got to the quarterback. They did what they needed to do today to shut the run game down. And then all of a sudden, then the secondary don't do their job. It's just unbelievable, man. That these Jimbo Fisher teams continue to just crap the bed, and they gotta move on from this guy. I mean, and you're right. You can't score 20-something points in this game. Listen, this year, if you play Alabama and you score 30 points, you will beat them.
Yeah,
you will beat Alabama if you score 30 points. Go look at all their games this year. I don't think they've scored 30 points hardly, except for on some crappy teams. So it's just a daggum shame, man. And no, I don't think Wegman makes a difference in this game. And I know Texas A&M fans got to be pretty pissed off because, and not to mention the game ends and Anaya Smith has like 80-something yards receiving. I mean, you got to figure out ways to get this guy the ball. This guy's a freaking just a game-breaking player. Anybody in the country would he'd start on any team there was. And just a shame that he's stuck on that Jimbo Fisher 100-page, mess of papers on the sideline, glasses on the end of my nose, wearing wash-up coach that he is. I'm tired of getting into these games, and I'm sour because I bet money on this game, man. And screw you, Jimbo. This is you had every chance. If you're not beating Alabama this year, man, what the hell are you doing, really? I just this was your chance, and bad. You got anything else on this game? I'm disgusted with it.
I mean, Jermaine Burton had a really good day today, almost 200 yards. kind of a career day for him. I didn't expect Jalen Milroe to be able to do this. I thought 200 yards, passing would be a really good day for him. I knew so I played a parlay that Jalen Milroe would have less than 180 yards. He obviously cleared that, and I knew he would. As soon as that first drive, he had like a 56-yard touchdown or something like that. So that was pretty much done at that point. But I kind of knew it would be a good day for them. I was really surprised that the under hit at 46.5 points. I mean, Vegas was right on this one, ended up right at 46. So that was my play, was under, but I also had Texas A&M and the points. But so I was happy to see that hit. I figured after the first quarter,
we'll take anything
there's
we
no
can
way.
get. Ain't that
That's
right?
right. That's right. These days, yeah. We were looking so promising, in weeks 1 through 3, and now we have just been in a can here lately. But we'll right the ship. We'll right the ship. There are ups and downs when it comes to sports betting for sure.
And it's not even from upsets. It's just a point here, point there.
But just looking at this, I mean, Alabama still can't block anybody.
No,
and they're still not controlling the football very well. They had, what did they have? 5 turnovers. Well, excuse me. They had 4 fumbles. Only one of them was actually lost. So, and then the 1 interception. I was reading my stats wrong here, but 4 fumbles, only lost 1 of them. They got lucky, really, in some ways. This game could have been a lot worse. So, I'm not impressed with Bama. I think that they're probably going to win the West, and they'll have a shot at Georgia. I'm not saying that they can't beat Georgia. Georgia, could slip, but I don't see it happening. I think Georgia wins. Probably 8 out of 10 against Bama, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, which is a lot more than you could say in years past.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the SEC West is doo-doo, and you heard it here first. They're horrible. Let's talk about Kentucky at Georgia, because obviously there was a really solid interest in this game this week, as people were just crawling all over the internets, looking for any take they could find on this, and just want to say thank you to all the Kentucky and Georgia fans that checked out our video this past week, and you should subscribe. And if you're watching this on the replay or live right now, excuse me, you get to watch this all the time. So if you just hit the subscribe button, and I know that you want to do that, because who the hell wouldn't want to do that? So let's talk about the Kentucky Wildcats at the Georgia Bulldogs. This was an absolute brutal beatdown. So the first quarter, Kentucky actually looks like they're going to move the ball pretty well, right? And just continuously shoots themselves in the foot. Unsportsmanlike penalties, false starts, just really not playing like a Mark Stoops coach team, in my opinion. That seemed very uncharacteristic. And it really hampered the team early on, and it was just on from there. Carson Beck was absolutely the game player of the week so far, in all of college football. What was he in the first half? I mean, was it what was it, 14 of 15 or something? I mean, it was just insane that for about 300 yards. Probably the best half of football I've ever seen from a Georgia quarterback. Is that safe to say? I'm about 30 years old. That's probably the best half of football I think I've ever seen from a from a Georgia quarterback. What do you think? I mean, this, and by the way, I mean, if you hadn't already seen it, the score was 51-13, the final. Georgia plays all their backups in the fourth quarter there. It was never a close game. Never close at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I can't recall an offensive outing like this from a Georgia quarterback, and I think the stat was that Carson Beck was the 5th quarterback in the SEC to in a half finish with 300 or more yards passing and complete at least 80% of his passes. So I mean, we're talking, in the history of the SEC, that's pretty impressive. I think that he grew up a lot last week against Auburn in a tough environment. Had to make some plays. We mentioned the third downs. Didn't really see a lot of third downs this week, so that surprisingly wasn't much of a factor. Really, there wasn't much to look at there. I mean, Georgia played a complete game, right? They played a complete game, and it was so out of hand from an early time period. I mean, it was 14-0 after the first quarter. It was already out of hand, and you could tell where this was going. That you weren't looking at stats like third down stats. You weren't looking at anything like that. I mean, none of that decided the game. Georgia out physicaled Kentucky. As you mentioned, the penalties hurt Kentucky early on. It just snowballed. 34-7 at halftime, and there was no looking back at that point. Really, Kirby and company probably could have just put in the second string offense and defense at that point, and they still wouldn't have been able to come back. But Kentucky did score two touchdowns in this game, which was more. They actually doubled their touchdown total over in comparison to the past 4 games that Georgia and Kentucky had played. They'd only scored 1 touchdown, so they were able to score 2 in this game. So that's I guess they're moving in the right direction in that sense. I was expecting more of a defense just to show up for Kentucky. It was really surprising that Georgia was able to just find open receivers every time Carson Beck threw the ball, it seemed, other than the 1 interception that he had, which was a pretty bad pass. It seemed that he was finding an open receiver. Ra Thomas had a great catch in the end zone for a touchdown. Bowers went off once again for his 4th game in a row with 100 or more receiving yards and a touchdown. So it was a complete outing from the Georgia offense. Still, they got the run game going, but there wasn't like a feature back, and that's not uncommon for Georgia. But I saw Edwards, in previous weeks was kind of putting a case together and having some really good games, kind of putting consecutive games together. But this week, was kind of average, and we saw a lot of backs get a lot of carries, and but you did see some improvement in totality in Georgia's rushing attack. They did rush for 173 yards against what we thought, like I said, was a pretty good Kentucky defense. But ultimately, when you look at Kentucky, right, up until last week, you thought so. Everybody was saying, well, Kentucky hasn't played anyone. Florida's going to be able to beat them. Handled Florida. So everybody said, wow, Kentucky's a really good team. They got excited about this game, and Kentucky just got exposed. They're not that good. That's really all the Devin Leary finished for 10 for 26 for 128 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, like I said, but when you're averaging 4.9 yards per pass, it's not getting it done. So I think that Kentucky's just really not that good at the end of the day. I think that now, we've talked about Texas A&M and Alabama at this point. We've talked about Kentucky and Georgia at this point. The contenders in the SEC now are, still Georgia, Alabama, one in first in each of their divisions, and then take it down one step, and you've got now. I think it's still going to be LSU, right? and Tennessee, and there's kind of a punter's chance of each of them winning. But that's kind of where we're at, and it looks like it's still going to end up being Georgia and Alabama. But anyways, that's kind of what I saw from this game. I was happy to see the running attack come a little bit from Georgia, but ultimately, Carson Beck and Brock Bowers just kind of took over this game. What else did you see from this?
Well, I saw Georgia's offensive game plan shift, I think, into the gear that Mike Bobo has been pushing for it to shift into the last few weeks. And I feel like for whatever reason, week after week, Georgia was hitting speed bump after speed bump with trying to get this game plan together. But I was happy to see Georgia throw the ball to open up the run. Instead of trying to do what Georgia teams have done in the past, which is run to open up the pass. This Georgia team is different than anything that we've seen in recent years. This team is loaded with wide receivers, very deep with wide receivers, and I'm not saying any of them are first rounders to the NFL or anything, but there's just a handful of really good college wide receivers on this team. And Georgia ran the ball, ran the ball only about 30% of the time today. At least it was until the fourth quarter. They probably ran it a little bit more to run the clock and things like that.
Right.
But they let Brock Vandagriff throw it 6 times. So I mean that was good to see. He did his thing. But with all that being said, this is just a different Georgia offense than what we've seen, and I think it's just Georgia working with what they've got. I think they'd rather be able to run the ball a little bit better. But you know what? The only way this team's going to run the ball better is by spreading this defense out and getting them out of the box and making it where they're not crowding the box on us. Because we don't have a go-to running back that's just going to dice up the defense or anything. So I was very happy with what Mike Bobo dialed up. I don't know how you wouldn't be happy with over half 100 points today and what Carson Beck did. But we saw Carson Beck really show a lot of emotion at the end of the Auburn game, and we both kind of said, is this going to be a turning point? This could be a moment that could be pivotal, for him as he kind of put the team on his shoulders and won the game for Georgia. And then he comes out and Georgia has 608 yards of total offense today. So this is a different Georgia team than what we're used to seeing. I think we would have seen more from Kentucky had they not shot themselves in the foot in the first quarter there. I think we would have seen a much closer game in the first half there, because I think Kentucky, when everything's going right, can move the ball on Georgia. I don't think this is any kind of Georgia like lockdown defense, but once Georgia got their biceps wrapped around the throat of Kentucky today, man, they just tightened down on them and didn't let them breathe. And it was good to see from a Georgia team. A lot of people have said that maybe they're not championship contenders. I don't know. That looked like a championship contender performance to me today. That was the first time that I've seen Georgia, and I said, wow, that was okay. That was special. That was a special performance. And I don't care if you're playing Kentucky State or Helen Keller State. When you're going out there and you're putting it up on somebody like that, I think that's very impressive. And not to mention, it was probably the second best team in the SEC East that Georgia was doing that to today. And possibly, but we're going to see Kentucky play Alabama here in a few weeks, and we'll see how that goes. But I think Georgia is clearly the number one team in the SEC at this point, and we'll see what happens in the top 25 rankings this week. But with Texas losing, and what we just saw from Georgia, I think everybody's going to feel pretty comfortable with Georgia being their number one team in the rankings this week.
With Georgia, while we're on the topic, I looked at last week against Auburn, and I said, okay, Auburn was really only successful running the football with their quarterback. That was the only reason why this game was close. realistically.
Yeah.
That was the main reason, I should say. Probably not the only reason, but what Georgia was able to do this week and kind of shutting it down on defense. Kentucky didn't have an answer, right? Auburn had an answer. They were able to really extend drives with their quarterback, and so this week I saw a different side of Georgia, and I saw I really saw a Kentucky team that had no game plan for Georgia like what Auburn had. And so now going into next week, looking at Georgia, and I'm thinking that they're probably going to be number one on most people's. And that has a lot to do with what Texas did. Now, also looking at a team like Michigan, not to get too far off topic, but Michigan was able to handle business once again. I know they played Minnesota, but they're doing to bad teams what really good teams do to bad teams. So that's making me think that they're a better team than maybe I thought that they were. But I still want to see them get challenged at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't talk about Syracuse, North Carolina, did we?
Nope. Not yet.
This is probably one of the most forgettable games of the week. North Carolina fans told us that we needed to remake the video last week because Tez Johnson was going to play. Well, he didn't even get a catch, did he?
I don't think so.
I didn't see him on the stat
sheet. He didn't start. Whatsoever. He didn't. Yeah.
I'm not sure that he even played. Really. So
he did play, but I don't know that he got targeted.
Okay. Well,
I'm looking it up right now.
Any college football fan that's watching this show, you already know about the situation that the NCAA and North Carolina, they've been feuding over the transfer of a player named Tez Johnson. He ends up getting approved. All of the sudden, NCAA is blaming North Carolina. NCAA bad, water wet, fire hot. These are things that we know. So we come to expect this stuff, but the NCAA was extremely informal in the way that they threw North Carolina under the bus about this. But with all that being said, it sure did look like North Carolina played with some fire this week as they ended up beating North Carolina 40-7. Drake May goes off. He's 33 of 47, 442 yards. So Drake May just continues to do Drake May things, and North Carolina just continues to chug along. And I'd say that was a pretty damn convincing win this week. North Carolina's right where they need to be in the ACC right now, and their schedule is about to heat up a little bit. I'm about to pull that up right now. But what did you think about that game?
So it looks like Devontae Walker did play. He had 6 catches.
I said Tez. I said Tez Johnson. What am I saying?
Walker.
It's Tez Walker.
Tez Walker. Yep, number 9. Yards. So he was a difference maker, right? In some ways, but I don't think that. I know that I had Syracuse in the money line, but that's more of a just it's good value, right? And you're just trying to see if Syracuse maybe can kind of get that done. But I don't think that this game went out of hand. But
hey, Mason,
I was looking at this saying that Syracuse should win this game.
Hey, you're breaking up a little bit. So I'll give you just a second to maybe try to work on that for just a second. So Devontae Walker does have 6 catches for 43 yards. So that's my bad. I was looking up Tez. I wasn't looking up Devontae. But look, this North Carolina team, like I said, they got everything in front of them. Them and Miami, 644 total yards today. That's insane. Wow, 442 passing, 202 rushing. North Carolina's right where they want to be. 10 of 19 on third down. That's a lot of third down conversions right there in one game. So let's look at North Carolina's schedule and see what they've got coming up here, because I'm telling you what, that's
holy cow.
that's a pretty convincing win. What's that?
This just in. Georgia Tech just scored a touchdown to take a 3-point lead with 1 second left in the fourth.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
What a win.
Goodness gracious.
What a win for the Yellow Jackets.
They're about to go up by 4.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That is insane, man. How does that even... All right, so North Carolina, I was just literally talking about North Carolina and how everything's wide open for them. I mean, this just makes it even more wide open for them in this situation. And, and by the way, guess who North Carolina plays next week? Miami. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's going to be on October 14th. And then North Carolina is hosting Virginia. And then they'll go to Georgia Tech. And then they'll host Campbell. They'll host Duke, go to Clemson, and to NC State. Don't look now, dude, but North Carolina, I think, is probably going to the ACC championship game.
Hey, if you got a chance to go ahead and bet UNC in the points for next week, I would go ahead and get on that before that line starts moving. So,
yeah,
for anybody out there, I don't even know what the spread is, but I would go ahead and get on that.
I don't know what lines are out yet.
Yeah.
But that is a good point. Wow. Georgia Tech is going to take down Miami here. So, did they miss the extra point?
They haven't kicked it yet, I don't think.
Oh.
There was I guess they were questioning the touchdown for a minute, but they came back and ruled it a touchdown.
Okay, gotcha. Wow. Insane. So anyway, with all that being said, I think North Carolina's got a very good shot to make it to Charlotte, man. I mean, they are in great shape. I think they've got one game that they sincerely have to worry about. I mean, this kind of answers questions for us about Miami. How did Miami put up 48 on Texas A&M? I don't even understand that. And just had their way with that defense. I don't understand what happened there. College football is freaking weird, dude.
You've got to be thinking that Miami was looking ahead to UNC. I mean, it's pretty clear, right, that they were not preparing for Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech just lost to freaking Bowling Green. Miami had to be saying, like, there's no way they're going to beat us, so why don't we focus on the next team, and we'll figure out a way to win against Georgia Tech. Well, you didn't figure out a way to win against Georgia Tech.
Bro, these boys are crying on the sidelines right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're literally, I mean, like, they are crying, bro.
This was in Miami, too. College football is a fickle creature.
This is unbelievable. What the hell kind of jerseys is Miami wearing? See, that's why you don't change up your jersey like that, for silly little games like this. That's just silly.
They even said before the game started, and Miami comes out in questionable blackout attire.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? They don't even look good. That's just silliness. What are the games we want to talk about, man?
Let's see what else happened.
Washington State at UCLA.
Well, Wyoming. Just a quick aside, real quick. Wyoming beat Fresno State, so Fresno State is out of the top 25.
Yeah, I saw they were spanking them pretty good.
And this is one thing that kind of sucks about doing our best bets on Tuesday. There were a lot of plays that this morning I'm looking at and I'm like, man, I don't feel good about this, and
Yeah.
That's one thing I wish we had a chance to like.
We're at a huge
change.
disadvantage on that.
That's right. That's right. So, but it is what it is. We want to get that content out to our fans, as soon as possible. But Wyoming was one that I looked at and went, man, that'd be a good money line play, and sure enough, they ended up winning.
Yeah. Yeah. Miami's doing some kind of weird Chinese fire drill type lateral. Oh man, Miami players are slamming their helmets and crying on the field as Georgia Tech takes them out 23-20. Oh man, that's bad stuff. Michigan takes care of Minnesota this week 52-10. Not much to go into there. Let's talk about this Washington State at UCLA game for just a second. UCLA is just the better, more well-rounded team here. Wins 25-17. Turnovers everywhere in this game. 6 turnovers total. Cam Ward, the luck just kind of runs out. They're just not a well-rounded enough team to deal with somebody like UCLA who ran the ball on them when they needed to and scored touchdowns by way of running the ball and got after their quarterback and stopped the run. Washington State was a one-trick pony, and UCLA showed us that this week. Like that, right?
Yeah, you're right, and that was something that we kind of talked about. Is what type of UCLA team are we going to get? And we got a UCLA team that was different than what we saw 2 weeks ago. That they're coming off of a bye, probably made some adjustments, and were able to prepare for a one-dimensional Washington State team, like you mentioned. When you have 2 weeks to prepare for a team like that, I think it kind of shows that you're able to put together a pretty successful game plan. They really limited Cam Ward. I think he had I want to say it was under 200 passing yards. I don't have the stats in front of me, but they really limited him today, and it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, UCLA, as I said, was just the more well-rounded team. I think you broke that one down pretty good in the pregame, and I think UCLA is right on track to where they want to go. I mean, the rest of their schedule sets up pretty nicely for them. I know they got USC towards the end of the year, but gosh, they're going to be able to run all over USC. I mean, they're going to run the ball all over those guys. Other than that, they don't have to play Washington and they don't have to play Oregon. So UCLA, I mean, don't look now with one conference loss to Utah and Utah being out of their way, so they don't have to worry about that head to head. UCLA is right where they want to be in the Pac-12. Everything right in front of them. So I don't think playoff was ever something that they would be interested in even discussing, because they're not making a playoff. But nonetheless, man, they got a good chance, I think, as good a chance as anybody at this point of making the Pac-12 championship game. UCLA's run game and pass rush was enough to throw Washington State off, and they win 25-17. As we said, Miami has been upset. That's going to change some things in the top 25.
And they are upset about it.
They are extremely upset about it. It's like they're going to probably vandalize something. It's pretty upsetting to them. Mason, here we are, October 7th. This is totally off the cuff, but
Yeah.
our buddy Siegs wants to hear how we feel about the playoff scenario at this point. How are you feeling right this second? We're early in the year. We just finished week 6. We're about almost right at halfway through the year. How are you feeling about the playoff picture at this point? Who do you think's in, and who's the first ones out at this point?
I still feel really good about my picks. All 4 of them are still in it. Preseason, my picks were Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, and actually, I did have Texas in there, which I guess they are still in it. So
they're very much still in it. Yeah.
I think that they still could beat Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma. That's kind of a 50-50 game right now in my eyes. But you look at that game and how it unfolded. Texas did have 3 turnovers, right? So I think that in a rematch, they should be able to clean up some of that, and it could still be a ball game. So I still feel really good about that. I think that Michigan's a real contender, which I know you had in your top 4. If I had to pick right now, I would say, just without seeing any conference championships, without kind of like speculating, to me right now, the top 4 would be Georgia. I would still keep Georgia in after this week. Okay. So I would say Georgia. I would say Michigan. I think that they've looked really solid. Ohio State, the Notre Dame game, win for them doesn't look that good anymore. So I think that I'm moving them out of my top 4 right now. Okay, so I'm going to take them out for the moment. So I'm going to input Washington, and then you got to give Oklahoma some credit right now. After the big win against Texas, so that would be my top 4 as of right now. Okay, so that's Georgia, Michigan, and Washington and Oklahoma. But as far as expectations, for the playoffs, I'm still sticking with Georgia, and Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas. I think that there's still a real chance for that to play out. I'd love to see it. I'd love to be right. So right now, I'm still going to stick with that.
Yeah, I think the first 2 conferences out are the ACC and the Pac-12 because I think they're the 2 that are most likely to kind of cannibalize one another.
Yep.
And
that was my whole reason for keeping both of them out. Is I knew that Florida State would be pretty good. I knew that Miami would be pretty good. UNC, I thought Clemson would be better. So I kind of thought that those would kind of play out as they pretty much have so far. And then same thing in the Pac-12. I think Oregon's a real contender. Don't get me wrong. I need to mention them because they seem to be the total package out there. Washington obviously is the best offense, but Oregon's got everything going right. So they could definitely they're definitely a dark horse playoff team in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're one of the right now. They're on the short list for sure. I feel good about my picks: Georgia, Michigan. I think Texas is still right there. I think we probably will see a Texas-Oklahoma rematch. I'm not sure Oklahoma can duplicate what they did. As much as I loved everything that I saw, I feel like that would probably be pretty difficult to duplicate against the team twice. It's really hard to beat a team twice. Yeah, we've seen rematches split, and we've seen them go the same way. Both times in the last few years. So it is possible, and there's no telling what can happen between now and then, as we're only in week 6. But yeah, Oklahoma's obviously in the rankings are going to have to slide on up there. As far as my playoff predictions go, I mean, I'm probably still sticking with the same teams: Georgia, Michigan, Texas, and Washington. I'm going to stick with those teams, and I know Oregon's a more well-rounded team, but I feel like the ceiling is higher for Washington, whereas the floor might be a little bit higher for Oregon as wins and losses go. But I'm not convinced anybody can go undefeated.
We'll get to break that game down this week, so I'm excited for that. We got Washington, Oregon next week, so
I've been on my Huskies all year, so I ain't backing off now.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, scare money don't make no money, so I'm gonna stay with my Washington Huskies. And I think it's another week where we just just have some unexpected outcomes as far as the point totals and things like that. And yet again, I feel like we didn't learn that much. I don't know. Let's see what the comment section saying here. If Oregon makes it through their gauntlet schedule with one loss, they will be in the playoffs. Well, here's my thing. If they make it through their gauntlet schedule with one loss, then they still got to play a Pac-12 championship game. And that's the part that if they go through their schedule with one loss and then they win the Pac-12 championship, damn straight, they're definitely in. And it would obviously, in my case, be over a team like Washington. I like Oregon. I really, really, really do. I like Oregon a lot. My thing is, I just think that they're going to lose a regular season game at some point. I just think this Pac-12 is so tough. I think there's going to be teams beating each other, and then I think you're going to have a couple of one-loss teams maybe, or a one-loss and a two-loss team in the Pac-12 championship, and then we've seen two-loss Pac-12 champions the last 2 years in Utah. So, I could see the Pac-12 just being freaking amazing this year, and then not making the 14 playoff. So, and then the Pac-12 is gone forever. So, I like Oregon a lot. I really do. So I can't wait to see how this plays out. And we're about to see one of those marquee matchups, as you said, this coming up week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if Oregon is going to get beat, it's going to come within the next 3 weeks, where they have Washington next week at Washington. They get Washington State at home. I don't think that they're going to struggle with that. I think that's a bad matchup for Washington State. And then they'll get Oregon on the road. Obviously, of those three, I think that Washington's the one that you look at and say, like, yeah, that they could definitely get Oregon with the way they're built.
Yeah. Siegs he's said he needed to get us on the record. He's keeping all the receipts. So we appreciate that, Siegs. They're we're nothing if not held accountable. So thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Mason, what other tidbits you got from this week? We covered the key matchups. What else you got?
Maryland really stuck around with Ohio State. We talked about that. We broke that game down.
Yeah,
they're able to pull
really
away
watch
late.
that. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it was my third screen. It was a noon game, so I had of course the Red River Rivalry going on, LSU and Missouri. And then, when you're watching these games, I don't know if you're like me, Mark, but I can only listen to 2 games at one time. So I got to have one silent screen. I've always got one silent, one going.
Wow, you're better than me. I can only listen to one because my wife
Yeah.
and my kids are in the other ear. So.
Oh yeah, no, I had a great weekend, a great football watching weekend, at least, because my wife took off and went shopping, so I got to I got to sit around and have my space. So, but yeah, so anyways, Ohio State's able to pick up the speed late, and end up covering. They ended up winning by 20 points. So that was pretty impressive to see. It was looking pretty bad, actually, and kind of got a late fourth quarter cover there. Florida State did not cover against Virginia Tech. I don't know if Jordan Travis went out of this game or something, because I was watching his stats. I had him in one of my parlay bets to have, I think it was more than 290 yards or something like that. And he was on pace, in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden he just didn't have any more stats. So I don't really know what happened there. But Florida State apparently kind of shut things down offensively and just allowed Virginia Tech to kind of stay in it. Now they still won 39-17, but it was kind of close there, just in the third quarter at some point. So that was interesting. Let's see. Arkansas, Ole Miss. Ole Miss ends up winning 27-20. This is a game that I didn't watch 1 second of. I don't know if you caught any of it, Mark.
Nope.
I just just kind of looking at it, sitting in my computer chair, 20-27. Wow, Ole Miss must have played like butt. I mean, they ended up scoring. They outscored Arkansas 10-7 in the fourth quarter, and I guess that kind of decided it. But interesting. We'll have to break that down a little bit later, maybe in our top 25 breakdown coming up tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, just a couple more things I was going to add to it. The Kansas State defense is ass.
Yeah, I forgot about the Friday game.
Well, I really liked your play, and so like a dummy, I went and bet it, and dummy is as dummy does. So I didn't enjoy that very much watching that. Kansas State, you're dead to me. Not going to talk about you anymore this year. Your season is over. Nebraska at Illinois, my under hit, and thank God because I didn't hit much. So
Nebraska was a pretty good win for them.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, considering that it's Nebraska, yeah, man, good win for Nebraska, and good. Thank you for helping me hit my under. Colorado at Arizona State. Colorado hits a game-winning field goal as time expires to win 27-24 over Arizona State. So Colorado gets back on the win board.
Couldn't even get me the push.
Yeah, and we've got some other games that are going on that we will probably talk about. I guess we'll probably end up talking about those on the Top 25 show that is coming up later this week. I just want to tell everybody thank you again for checking out all the videos last week, and we hope everybody comes back and comes and looks at the show and subscribes and likes the videos and all that good stuff. We sure have enjoyed going through all these games, breaking them down, giving you our reactions, predictions, top 25s, all that good stuff. We've really enjoyed that stuff. Been a good year so far. Maybe not betting against the spreads. It hadn't been that great, but nonetheless, we've had a good time, and thank you so much for tuning in and checking it out. And we hope that you'll come back and check it out again. For everybody here at the First and Long College Football Show, I am your co-host, Marcus, signing off for your other co-host, Mason. Mason, have a good night. Everybody, have a good one. See you later this week for our Top 25 show.
Thanks. Have a good night.